Hi, I'm Philippe, security engineer at GitLab, and today we're going to talk about my OKR, the GitLab Inventory Builder. This is something that I started at the beginning of the quarter, so the project is kind of brand new, but I already got a lot of questions from various team members inside the security department and outside of the security department, so I'm trying to answer all these questions in this video. So why did we create this inventory in the first place? Let me share my screen real quick. So if we take, for example, the GitLab project that we all know, hosted under gitlab.org/GitLab, if we want to see all the dependencies of this project, we have this dependency list page here. The dependency list is using the dependency scanning feature and relies on the pipeline running on this project. The problem here is if I want to know exactly what are the dependencies running, I have to browse 180 pages. And there is no search in there. There is no way to search for a very specific dependency. So imagine that at the scale of GitLab, where we have thousands of projects involved in the build of GitLab itself and shipping GitLab itself, it's rather impossible to figure out if we're using a very specific dependency and a very specific version of that dependency. So we started from this problem, and I got this other problem a few months ago where we discovered a CVE on a very specific version of Go, and I was not able to very easily figure out where this Go version was used, and if it was used, how it was used in which context. So it took me approximately 5 to 6 months to get rid of this problem. And I had to ask around pretty much every single team if they were using this Go version. And we discovered that we are using actually Go 1.15 at that time in all of these projects. I had to do this work manually, and that was very tedious. I don't want to do that again in the future. If we have another advisory on Go or Python or Ruby or whatever, we need to know exactly what we're using and where it's used. So that's why I started this project, the GitLab Inventory Builder, currently residing in the engineering and research sub-department where I'm working. It's a very simple project. I like efficiency. And I started this project with this conference in mind. I didn't want to start something shipping with GitLab directly in the Rails application because I wanted to ship something as fast as I could because I just have a quarter to experiment with that. So it's something on the side, but it's very simple to use. And actually you can already use that today, and any of our customers could use that today if they want. What they need is only a GitLab CI configuration file in an empty project and include this template here that I created. This template defines a lot of variables so that you can configure how you want to run this inventory builder. And the other part of the configuration is this data structure. So everything is done through a tree structure within this data dir, which is the root of the data folder that we want to synchronize. And every folder in there is going to be synchronized. That's exactly the tree structure that we have on gitlab.com. We have a GitLab com project, the GitLab org project. And for example, I already created these 2 subdirectories because I don't want to synchronize them. But if I run the GitLab Inventory Builder on this, it's going to synchronize all the subgroups, all the subprojects within GitLab com and GitLab org. And so for every single project and subgroups that we're going to synchronize, I'm going to store the metadata of the project within the tree structure, along with the group metadata. And the point of all of this is to be able to categorize the projects. So there's this merge request that is currently in a draft mode because I'm still working on the different categories and how we are going to work with these categories. So I already defined a few categories here to get started. And based on these categories, I define two things. The first one is rules. So rules are actions based on categories. So for example, if it's a product project, so something that is involved in the final package of GitLab, it's something that's going to ship with GitLab. The rule is I want to download the vulnerability reports. I want to download all the dependencies, and I want to download the CI/CD configuration. So basically a flat version of the GitLab CI configuration file. I also want to define some policies based on these categories. So for example, if the project is a website external, meaning it's a user-facing application and it's dealing with yellow, orange, or red data, then we will require you to enable Dust. So what I'm doing with that is I'm trying to write down all the rules that we're trying to apply every day as part of the security team, but they are not enforced and they are not very specifically defined anywhere, whether in the handbook or documentation or anywhere else. It's just a case by case. We evaluate every single project that we are working with, and we define if we want to have secret detection, if we want to have SAST or dependency scanning, and we have to do that over and over again. The problem is not only we don't have a consistency by doing this kind of workflow, but also we also have a lot of dark corners. We have a lot of projects that we're not able to monitor correctly because they are just not on the radar. Projects are created almost every day at GitLab. We have a lot of engineers, engineers of departments. And at the scale of GitLab, it's becoming quite impossible to following everything that is occurring. So that's a good way to not only track what's happening, but also being able to say, okay, we have these changes this week. We need to understand what they are referring to, how this project is used. Maybe it's just a demo or a test or a POC, and then there's nothing to do for us, but at least we categorize the project as such, and we know in the future that this project is known as a demo project, and whatever happens in there is not going to impact us, and we don't have to worry about this vulnerability report, for example. But for all the others, that's a good way to centralize and to gather all the data that we need to work on our daily basis in a single location. So not only we have all the dependencies of all the projects that we want to monitor, but we also download all the vulnerability reports. So we have a very unique way to create a dashboard by cherry picking the projects that we want to monitor within GitLab.com, GitLab.org, and so on, because we have a lot of different projects under the root namespaces that we want to track. I created here a public example of how to build an inventory. So I started with an empty project, and I just added, of course, a README file to explain what's going on there, but there's also a GitLab CI configuration file using exactly what I was showing. So we include the template, and I did a few tweaks by overriding some variables defined in this template. That's all it takes to get started. And I also created this data folder with this structure. So actually, I'm going to use the web IDE to show you the structure. That's going to be easier to explain. There we go. In the data folder, we have the GitLab.org root namespace. So that means we want to synchronize things in there, but there's an ignore file here. So the GitLab Inventory Builder will just stop the synchronization at this point and not try to download everything that is under GitLab.org. But we also have this 5-minute production app, which is actually a real project, a real group under GitLab.org. And I added this keep file because I want to keep this folder empty. So that empty folder is going to be synchronized by the GitLab Inventory Builder. So we can see that everything is happening in the pipeline. And it's going to validate the data, update the data, and a few things that we're going to see right after that. But it's also going to create a merge request with all the synchronization data in there. So I can review that, and you can see that we actually added a lot of different projects under this 5-minute production app. So I can review all of these changes. And if everything is fine with me, then I just can go ahead and merge that and start categorizing all of these projects. I can say, for example, I don't care about everything that is under examples, so I can delete all the sub-projects in there and add an ignore file in there. But otherwise, I can just go ahead and merge that. As I was saying, in the pipeline, we're doing a few more things, and that's what I started to experiment this week. Since we are able to categorize the projects, and for example, we can say that's a website and it's a user-facing website and it has red data, for example, I can also add some URLs directly to the properties file that we're using to categorize the projects. And since we're using these URLs somewhere in the repo, I can just grab these URLs and generate an artifact that will contain a list of URLs. Oh, never mind. And with this list of URLs, what I can do is I can start checking all the SSL configurations. And so I have this job generating some reports. For example, here for customers.gitlab.com, I have a lot of details in there. And what I want to do in the future is start working with this overwork grade here. That's a B. So I want to create a policy, for example, that will say if it's a website user-facing, so external, and using yellow, orange, or red data, the grade here can't be lower than A. That's something that we can do very easily. Planning to use OPA for that. And it's actually super easy because I also generate the report as JSON. So I just need to pass this JSON file and look for the grade in there and check if it's below A or not. So that's where I am today. If you want to contribute, feel free to check out GitLab Inventory Build project. I will share the links in the description of the video. There's also the main OKR that I'm working on here, and there's an issue in their IDs for future iterations. So if you have any ID for this project, for example, using dependencies to do anything, then I will be happy to discuss that with you directly in that issue. Don't forget to ping me in there. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. Bye-bye.